Welcome to Now We're Getting Somewhere. I'm Katie, and I'm a certified life coach, but I've also been a management consultant at McKinsey and a product manager at a tech startup. In other words, I know what it feels like to have a life that looks pretty good on paper, but doesn't feel as good as I want it to. I help my professional clients develop lives that are more meaningful, happy, and also more successful. And I want to share the same practical insights with you. Let's go. Everybody, I am recording this podcast at 2:51 on a Friday afternoon. I leave tomorrow on a transatlantic flight to transport my little family, my husband and my 2 toddler sons, to Portugal to go visit my in-laws and my husband's whole extended family, who all live most of them live about an hour outside of Lisbon. And if I'm being honest, I am nervous. Not nervous about seeing my in-laws because they're really, really nice, but I'm nervous about transporting my children via airplane. I have, I think, prepared and researched and planned as much as a person can in these circumstances. So I feel a certain peace at this moment that I have done all that I can. But you know, team, as you get this, as it's actually posted, I will have already completed the journey to Portugal, but please hold me in your thoughts and prayers for the journey back. Hopefully the journey there was okay. But I guess I'm just wanting to share that about me and my life in case you have any journeys coming up, literal or even metaphorical, that you're nervous about. Speaking of journeys, today I want to talk about compasses. If you're familiar with my work, you have probably heard me talk about compasses before. But just in case, a metaphor that I often use to describe 2 things that we must have in order to build a life that feels really right to us is that we must have a compass and we must have an engine. A compass, of course, is what tells us which way to go, and the engine is what powers us on our way. And we really do have to have both because, for example, if you know what way to go, if you have a functioning compass, but you don't have an engine to get you there, obviously you're not going to go anywhere. That's a problem. But if you have an engine, but you don't really know where to go, that's also a problem. You could see how you could burn a ton of fuel engineering all over the place and not really knowing the right direction in which to point. So you do need both. And I will say as an aside, I think I got this kind of compass engine metaphor from Martha Beck, who is really one of the OG life coaches in the field. But I have gone back and reread her books, and I just can't seem to find exactly where I took it from. So it is from somewhere, but my attribution is not perfect here. But compasses and engines. One thing that I do very, very frequently, and one thing I do very, very well in my life coaching practice is that I help people with malfunctioning or seemingly non-existent compasses. And of course, to be clear, people in situations with malfunctioning or non-existent compasses typically don't refer to it in that language. That's something a life coach would say. Instead, they would usually say something like, "Oh, I don't really know what I want to do next," or "I don't really know what I want to do about this big life decision about my job or my relationship or where I want to live." Or, and I get this one a lot actually, people will tell me, "I feel like my life is off, but I'm not really sure in what way it's off or what I should do about it, but I just feel not right." And when someone says any of those things to me, any variation of, "I don't know what I want," I internally am like, "Let me in, coach." And if you could see me behind this podcasting screen, as I am sitting here, I am kind of rubbing my hands together with excitement because compass issues are some of my favorite work to do. It's my bread and butter. I can coach on it every day of the week. And frankly, I do coach on it many days of the week because it comes up for many of my clients in one form or another. And in that work together, there will often be a moment when a client will come to our session and they will look very grave or very upset. And they will say to me, "Katie, something is seriously wrong. I had this huge issue with my compass." And then they'll tell me about it. And I will frequently, very respectfully, after I've heard what they said, explain that actually nothing is wrong per se. It's just that their compass is functioning how compasses function. And if we know how a compass is supposed to function, then we can read its cues more accurately. We can use that information more effectively to inform our direction. And also, we can just feel way less anxious. So it's very, very useful to understand how compasses typically function. But unlike, say, my bedside digital alarm clock, our internal compasses don't come with instruction manuals. We don't learn in school how to do this, and we might not have learned from our parents either. Or maybe we did learn something, but it just doesn't seem like it's comprehensive enough to really deal with the complexity of navigating as an adult. And because of that, because nobody ever really taught us, many of us never actually know how to operate our compass. And I say that as, again, hand raised, someone who felt like she really didn't know how to operate her compass for the first 2+ decades of her life. And the fact that I personally had such a significant before and after, such a significant shift from, I'm just going to pro-con list this thing, but honestly, I don't really know what I want to do, to now feeling like, yeah, I typically do know what I want. That transition, I think, is a big part of why I started coaching on this topic so much. So today, I want to create, as a gift to this world, a bit of a compass instruction manual. I can't share absolutely everything because compasses are subtle and deep and slightly mysterious instruments, but I want to share 8 key points that I really think everyone should know so you can better engage with this subtle and deep and mysterious instrument. So with that said, let's get started. Compass instruction manual point number 1 is: compasses drained of batteries will only tell you that they are drained of batteries. I'll say that again. Compasses drained of batteries will only tell you that they are drained of batteries. So you know when your iPhone or your laptop is drained of battery and then you turn it on and it just shows that kind of flashing battery is dead sign and then it just turns itself off? Your human metaphorical compass is 100% like that. If human metaphorical compasses came with instruction manuals, just like my alarm clock or perhaps your iPhone does, it would genuinely say a compass will not give directional information when drained of battery. And the interesting thing here is that often when this happens, people freak out and they think that their compass doesn't work, when actually your compass is totally working. It just is telling you the one thing that it really, really wants you to know, which is you need more battery. And truly, this is the number one misconception about compasses that I find that I have to explain to the world. I tell it to clients very, very frequently. In fact, I literally just told this to a girlfriend of mine just this week. We were chatting on the phone about her next career move, and she was telling me she had no idea what she wanted. It was really stressing her out. And of course, it is very stressful to not know what you want. So I don't blame her for feeling that way. And then she asked if I had any, life coaching insights on the topic. So I just asked her some kind of basic triage questions to just figure out what she did know about what she wanted, just to kind of assess the health of her compass. So I was asking her these questions and she was like, I think that if I was being honest, I just don't want a job at all. Like on some level, I just want to quit my job and never work again, but I can't do that financially. So I just feel trapped and like I have nothing to navigate by. And then it was very clear to me what the problem was. It was just like, girl, your compass is working just fine. It's just that when your compass is out of batteries, the only thing it's going to tell you is that you need to recharge your batteries. You're not going to get any more information until there's juice in that thing. And then she laughed and I think was really relieved because she had been going through a busier time than usual and she was genuinely tired. And so she didn't have to worry that her compass was broken or malfunctioning or that she'd never know what she wanted. She just had to focus on getting enough fuel so that the compass stopped showing her a low battery reading. And to be clear, of course, she could, for example, quit her job to rest, but that's not necessary. She could also just prioritize rest more in her life as a whole while keeping her job. Both are options. But again, in these situations, it's not that the compass isn't working. The compass is, in fact, working. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, which is to not give a reading when it doesn't have enough battery level, just like your laptop, just like your iPhone. So that is Compass Instruction Manual point number 1. Compasses drained of batteries will only tell you that they are drained of batteries. Which leads me to point number 2. Compass Instruction Manual point number 2 is compasses run on a different, more rarefied fuel than engines. Compasses run on a different, more rarefied fuel than engines. And this is another huge misconception about compasses, because let's say that you have enough juice in your person, in your psyche, to do a great job at work, such a great job that you even get a promotion. And also you take your kid to swim practice after work. And also you cook dinner for your family of 4. And also you wake up at 6 a.m. to go to jujitsu 3 times a week. And all of that, of course, requires a fair amount of juice. And you might feel even okay doing all of those things. So you might think, oh, but don't I have enough fuel in my tank? I mean, I have enough fuel to do all these things. Isn't that a lot of fuel? But also it can be simultaneously true that you do have enough fuel for those things, but also you don't have enough of that kind of special, extra rich fuel that compasses need. And this can be hard for people to accept because they may need to cultivate a very particular, very rarefied kind of fuel in order to get their compasses working, especially if they are in a season of life where they need to do some more intensive work with their compasses. We all find ourselves in seasons like that sometimes. So if you are feeling adrift, it might require doing things that you feel like you shouldn't, quote unquote, need to do. It might require resting more or differently than you think you, quote unquote, need to do or that you're accustomed to, just so you can get some of that sweet, sweet, rarefied compass fuel to use. So take that into consideration too. So that is Compass Instruction Manual point number 2. Compasses run on a different, more rarefied fuel than engines do. Compass Instruction Manual point number 3 is, before you assume that your compass is broken, make sure that you are 1, connected to the network, and 2, that the volume is turned up. Before you assume that your compass is broken, make sure that you're 1, connected to the network, and 2, that your volume is up. So if you can imagine that I am basically tech support for compasses, people who walk into compass tech support often can't hear their compass at all. And so they assume that it's broken or maybe non-existent. And the good news is that typically neither of those things are actually the case. Yes, that person might not be hearing anything from their compass. They're not mistaken about that. But what's actually happened is 2 things. First, they've lost connection to the signal, so they don't even know how to receive what their compass is telling them. And second, even if they reconnect that signal, the volume is turned just way, way down, so it's really hard to hear. So if I am coaching someone, we typically have to work on both of those things in that order. First, we have to reconnect the signal, and then we have to turn up the volume. So let's talk about both of those things. Reconnecting with the signal might sound kind of complex or scary, but it actually doesn't have to be so complex. If I'm working with a client, I will typically start by reconnecting to what it has felt like when their compass has told them something in the past. And the easiest way to do that, in my opinion, is to ask them about their yeses and nos in their body. Most of us have had some more intense experiences of physical or somatic yeses and no on a number of memorable occasions in our lives. So maybe, for example, you walked into an apartment that you were considering renting and your body felt expansive and bright and joyful immediately. And maybe it took you a second for your head to even understand what was going on and why you felt so good. But eventually you kind of consciously realized, oh, this place is a great fit for me because the natural light and the hardwood floors, they're so perfect. But you knew on this deeper level, on this compass level, almost instantaneously. So I call this experience an embodied yes. Or maybe conversely, someone once offered you a side work project that would be some extra money and you'd like to have more money, all other things being equal, and you do technically have time for it, but your whole self felt tight and closed and like it was collapsing in on itself when you thought about it. And if you were really self-aware when you reflected or journaled on it later, you might have realized, it is true that I like money and would like more of it theoretically, but I don't actually want this particular project. So again, you might consciously eventually understand the reasoning, but that first initial experience, that embodied understanding, I would call that a somatic no. So what I often do with my clients, and you can do this too if you like, is reflect on times in their past where they felt these really strong yeses or no's, like an 8 or a 9 or a 10 on a 10-point scale of intensity. And we will revisit how it felt to them somatically in their bodies, because everyone's yeses and no's are a bit different. Did they feel tight in their chest? Was there a sensation in their belly of some kind? Was there an openness in their back? Everyone's is a little different. And to be clear here, obviously, these yeses and nos, they're not the only way a compass can speak to us. It doesn't just speak through yes or no, and it doesn't just occur as a somatic experience. But I find that most of us have experienced this particular manifestation of a compass, and that's just a really, really useful way in. Kind of, again, as I said, hooking them up to the signal again. And then once we're hooked up to that signal, once we remember what it even feels like to know something on a level that's below our kind of prefrontal cortex rational brain, the next step is to turn the volume up to that signal. And of course, to come back to our trusty iPhone metaphor, when we have an iPhone, we can just press the little button on the side and the volume gets higher. But with a compass, the first step to turning up the volume would be the iPhone equivalent of kind of like smashing your ear against the iPhone for a period of time, just to make sure that you can hear every little teensy tiny sound. Because once you get good at listening, you'll be able to hear all of those sounds without your ear smashed up against the metaphorical phone. The volume will feel like it's turned up because you'll be better at listening. And to make this really practical, what that tends to translate into in my client work is that after my client is hooked up to the signal and kind of re-remembered what the experience of a yes or no was like, I will give them an assignment to track their yeses and nos for the next week at least. So I will typically ask them to keep a list. Often this is literally just a list in their phone, in their notes app, of everything that felt like a yes and everything that has felt like a no during that week. So a running list as they go through their week. And usually if they've gotten an introduction, really a reintroduction to what that experience of yes or no feels like, if they remember it, even at its most intense, then when they spend the whole week listening very, very carefully, they will find other examples, even much more subtle ones. They'll come back to me and they'll say, oh man, spending time with this colleague was a total yes. Or they'll say, oh, this project was a total no. Or they'll say, oh, this slice of cake was a yes, but that slice of cake was a no. And sometimes they will find that a lot of their life feels like a no, which I want to talk about in a second. But the point of this exercise is that a compass is kind of like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And conversely, the less you use it, the more it atrophies. So for many of us, we actually have extraordinarily atrophied compasses. But you can make it stronger again, often faster than we realize. You just need to get really, really close and really, really listen. So that is Compass Instruction Manual point number 3. Before you assume that your compass is broken, make sure that you're connected to the network and the volume is up. So Compass Instruction Manual point number 4 is, if your compass volume suddenly increases and tells you you are far from your right life, the correct next action is to throw a party. Another thing that often happens, if I have a client who comes to me with a compass which has had the volume turned way, way down, or someone who has had the batteries dead to her compass for a long time, is that this client will do a ton of work to turn up the volume to their compass. And they will do it successfully. And what the compass will tell them when it is turned on again is they are quite far from their ideal destination. And in fact, they might be barreling in totally the wrong direction. And I will know that this has happened because a client will come to me one session with really big eyes and they'll just say, Katie, I have realized that my life is totally out of alignment and it's totally going in the wrong direction. And of course, if this happens, I will listen very compassionately to my clients and I will respond very empathetically about how hard that must be. Because look, it is very upsetting, genuinely upsetting to realize that your life is totally out of alignment or going in the wrong direction. I do not discount that at all. But after I have done that for quite a bit of time, I will kind of laugh and smile and do a little celebration dance. And the reason that I laugh and smile and do that kind of celebration dance is because realizing that you are quite far from your right life is actually amazing proof that your compass is back online and totally functioning. And for many of my clients, this was not the case at the beginning of our time together. And even more importantly, we must have that navigational equipment working in order for us to get anything else done. So I will explain that to them. I will say, oh my gosh, this is amazing from where I am sitting, actually, because it means that all of the work that you did to get your compass working again has paid off. This is fantastic. We finally have the tools that we need to get moving. Getting a reading at all, if you are someone who was previously not getting any compass readings, is a sign that you as a person have made quite significant, measurable progress. Getting a compass back online is no small feat. It often takes quite a bit of time and quite a bit of emotional work and action in the world. So from where I'm sitting, if a client has accomplished that, things are chugging in the right direction, as I hoped they would. And of course, it's going to be another chunk of work to turn them around and help them get pointed in the right direction. But they've already proven that they are someone who can do amazing personal growth work. And of course, I help people turn themselves around every day of the week. So again, as a team, we've totally got this. So I just wanted to give you that hopefully reassurance, I suppose, if you are doing work to get your compass back online. And then suddenly it is online. But oh my gosh, you got a very upsetting reading. I do not want you to fret because getting readings at all is a big deal and a very important thing. So go buy yourself a personal pan pizza because it is time to celebrate, yo! Okay, so that is Compass Instruction Manual point number 4. If your compass volume suddenly increases and it tells you you are far from your right life, the correct next action is to throw a personal pan pizza party. Compass Instruction Manual point number 5 is compasses are not like Google Maps in terms of destination or directions. So when I interact with Google Maps, I plug in my exact destination. It might be that fancy bakery in Silver Lake where I will buy the best lemon poppy seed tea cake of my life. And Google Maps will give me every single turn from here to there. And of course, now Google Maps even shows me where the stoplights are and how traffic is at every point along the way. And unfortunately, real compasses do not typically operate with that degree of specificity, either in the end destination or in the journey. So in terms of the end destination, your compass may give you something that is kind of amorphous. Whereas I know for a fact that the Tartine in Silver Lake is located at 3921 Sunset Boulevard, and I highly recommend them for lemon poppy seed tea cake, by the way. My compass might just give me something very general. It might be just a general idea of what I want or where I want to move forward to, or it might be an image, or it might be this really small specific thing that will eventually fit into a larger whole, but I'm not totally sure how yet. But it will almost assuredly not be the full-fledged 3921 Sunset Boulevard. And also in terms of directions, I mean, if you think your compass is going to do this Google Maps style with all 18 steps up front, you're going to be very disappointed with your actual human compass because that probably will not happen. Human compasses often, and I would probably even say usually, they usually tell us, 1 or maybe 2 steps at a time. They are frequently like, the metaphor of holding a flashlight where you can only see a few feet in front of you. And then when you get to that spot that was previously a few feet in front of you, holding the flashlight, now you can see another few feet. Compasses are very frequently like that flashlight. They might just tell you the next thing to do, just literally the next thing to do. Quit that job, or sign up for that tango class just to try it, or go on just one more date with that person. But you might not know at the time the long-term trajectory of that. And to be clear, I'm not trying to say that if you want a life in alignment with your compass, you can never plan or never, for example, identify the next, we could say 18, but probably it's more realistically like 5 steps to take. I mean, obviously planning can be an essential part of life, but I would say that actually I tend to think of planning as more of an engine function. Like, plans do often need to be made to move through this life, and planning can help you accomplish your dreams far more effectively and efficiently. But that is frequently not something your compass will do for you. Again, not always. Sometimes it does. Sometimes the plan just pops out of you in that intuitive way from your compass. But frequently what will come to you from your compass is a little more broad and vague. So, 2 more things to say quickly about the whole a human compass is not Google Maps thing. The first one is that some people's compasses, either for a period of time or for always, these compasses don't actually tell them what to do. They just tell them what not to do. So don't take that job, don't get married to that person, but it never tells them, do this. And the good news about this is that even though that's quite annoying, and for some people, they can sort of learn how to get the information about a yes. That is something I help my clients with, but some people just a no will literally be all they ever get. But even though this can be annoying, you actually can navigate through life with this very effectively. It will work effectively, but you have to kind of get used to that process too. And you have to learn how to work with the compass you have, which again is not Google Maps. And the second and final thing to say about this point is that, you may not even get both a direction and steps. You might just get overall direction, or you might just get 1 or 2 steps, but again, not both. And I feel as I say this, like maybe I'm breaking bad news to you. Like you might be here thinking, listening to me like, wow, compasses seem a little bit useless. But from my perspective, number 1, compasses are insanely useful. And 2, knowing how this kind of mysterious instrument works is, I think, really helpful to getting more out of it, because you won't spend your time frustrated with the information you do get. So with that in mind, again, that is Compass Instruction Manual point number 5. Compasses are not Google Maps in terms of destination or directions. So I have 3 more points to share, but they're pretty short, so I think you'll get them pretty quickly. Compass Instruction Manual point number 6 is, if you're having trouble hearing your compass, try lowering your own volume. If you are someone who generally can hear their compass, per point number 2. So if you can generally hear your compass, but you are having trouble at this particular moment in time, kind of hearing the message, it will typically be very, very helpful to try to lower your own volume. This could mean going somewhere quiet physically, so you're just taking in less stimulation, so it feels quieter to be you. It also might mean making sure to listen for the compass signal when you're the most internally quiet. So when your internal state is calmer and steadier and can hear more subtle things. That might be late at night when everyone else in your house is asleep, or it could be first thing in the morning, or maybe it's when you've had a quiet day to yourself and taken a run and also journaled. So if you really need to hear the signal from the compass, you need to do whatever you need to do to kind of lower your internal volume, and then you will typically hear your compass a lot better. Compass Instruction Manual point number 7 is sometimes decisions are just not strongly right. Here's what I mean by that. Sometimes we are giving up a hell no and we are choosing a hell yes. That's a strongly right decision, going from a hell no to a hell yes. If you are actually hooked up to your compass, you're going to get a clear reading on that decision. But sometimes we're giving up a yes and we're stepping into an unknown because we feel on some level like more is available to us and that it's right to do that. And we may want to do that, but simultaneously, typically it might be scary to do that. So it's a yes, but it is a yes with plenty of hesitation because we're giving up something good and there's risk in that. That's a tough situation. So again, that's a decision that's right, but it's more like slightly right. Or sometimes we're choosing between a no and slightly less of a no. So yes, it is somewhat better, the decision we're making. It is the right decision, but also it's still kind of a no. And so it's all kind of messy and stucky. And so our compass just isn't going to like beep, beep, boop, 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 tell us that this decision is clear and obvious when these, again, decisions are a bit more murky and suboptimal. So sometimes, again, I think if we feel a tentativeness about our compass in certain situations, we can think that something is wrong or the decision is wrong, or maybe our compass just isn't working well enough if it's not giving us a clear signal. But sometimes nothing's wrong. It's just telling you that the decision is not strongly right. And the final point, compass instruction manual point number 8, is a compass may not always have an answer for you. Some things in life are just unknowable, at least at this moment in time. You can get as quiet as you can. You can do everything right. Your compass can be a finely tuned instrument and you are a prodigy at playing it. And also, an answer is just not available at this moment in time. So that's it. That is my compass instruction manual in 8 points. I hope that was helpful. I will review it for you because I always think that's helpful for our brains to kind of hear the concise summary of all the things you just heard. So compass instruction manual point number 1 is that compasses drained of batteries will only tell you that they're drained of batteries. Compass instruction manual point number 2 is compasses run on a different, more rarefied fuel than engines. Compass instruction manual point number 3 is before you assume that your compass is broken, make sure that you're connected to the network and the volume is up. Compass instruction manual point number 4 is if your compass volume suddenly increases and tells you that you're far from your right life, the correct next action is to throw a party. Compass instruction manual point number 5, compasses are not Google Maps in terms of destination or directions. Compass instruction manual point number 6, if you're still having trouble hearing your compass, try lowering your own volume. Compass instruction manual point number 7, sometimes decisions are just not strongly right. And compass instruction manual point number 8, a compass may not always have an answer for you. So I hope these were helpful. I really do feel like so many of us would be happier and in lives that were more right for us if we had compass instruction manuals that existed and that we read. And I would love to know what you think. So take care, team. I am rooting for you. And again, I hope you are rooting for me in terms of my transatlantic toddler travel. And I will talk to you soon. Bye, everyone. If you really want to change in a meaningful, lasting way, that's when you need a life coach. Every client I've worked with has had incredibly personalized reasons why they're in the tired or anxious or stuck or uninspired state they're in. Working with me can help you identify those roadblocks, which are usually blind spots that you genuinely cannot see, and implement a profoundly customized, doable plan for overcoming them. I have a very small, high-end, one-on-one coaching practice. If you'd like to be my next client, reach out at katiesiever.com. I'd love to meet you.